Hello, YouTube universe and everyone else out there. Today we are going to talk about the Emergency Disaster Loan Program available from the U.S. Small Business Administration. As businesses throughout America struggle to emerge from the shadows of the pandemic, if you find yourself in financial need of support and assistance as you relaunch and reemerge from the economic disaster that we face throughout the U.S., this would be a great opportunity to learn how to apply, how to find the EIDL application, and I will go through it with you and answer some basic questions as well, and I'm happy to respond to comments in the comment section. Please take a moment to click subscribe, click the bell, and choose all so that you're up to date on all new content. And if you do find this helpful, please click the like button. So to start with, all you'll need to do in your browser is go to the search bar and simply type in EIDL Loan Application, or even EIDL should be sufficient. Now, once you do that, you will find yourself with various search results. Make sure that you click on a link that does say SBA.gov. The .gov is very important. There are .com versions which are not associated with the SBA. So make sure you are clicking on it. It should be one of the first, if not the first link to show up. So it'll be an SBA.gov link. We're going to go ahead and click on that now. And please ask any questions in the comment section. I will do my best to reply, as will others from the YouTube community, I'm sure. So we find ourselves now on the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Emergency Advance landing page. And as you can read in front of right here on the screen, as you're looking at, this loan advance will provide up to $10,000 of economic relief to businesses that are currently experiencing temporary difficulties. Now, the loan advance is a bit different than the loan itself. The loan advance is an option, and it's based on the number of employees in your business. You may or may not qualify for the advance. The advance typically does not have to be repaid. If you have no employees, you probably won't have an advance. For example, if you have an entity which is just yourself and your business, and you're not an employee of your business, you may not receive an advance. If you have a number of employees, you may receive the advance, which typically is not repaid. But the loan itself can be far greater than $10,000. So that is just one component of the program. So in order to qualify, you must have a business that obviously existed prior to the pandemic. And in addition to that, you've suffered financial loss, and your business plan is to obviously continue. So let's go ahead and scroll down. Now, the good news is right now you'll see notice now accepting new applications for economic injury disaster loans, also called EIDL. So this is good news because not long ago it was stating not currently accepting applications, and at a certain point it was stating agricultural businesses only. So at this point, if you're lucky when you're watching this video, they are now accepting applications. So you do want to apply before the funding runs out. So of course, read through everything, make sure that you meet the eligibility requirements. Once you're ready to proceed, you simply click apply here. Now, I'm not going to submit this loan application. This is for educational purposes only, and I'm not going to type in my social security number, even though I do have identity theft protection. I'm not quite that confident to put in my own personal information, including social security number. So first, you'll want to choose the type of business that reflects your business. Now, if you have more than one business, you can apply more than once. So one option is applicant is a business with not more than 500 employees, which would apply to most small businesses around the country. And there are various other options. If you are an agricultural enterprise with not more than 500 employees, you'd specify that. And there's various other examples. One example, which is important, would be applicant is an individual who operates under a sole proprietorship with or without employees or is an independent contractor. So for example, if you're an independent contractor paid by a 1099 once a year, which various types of professions would fall under, so you're not an employee, but you're an independent contractor, taxes aren't taken out, you receive a 1099, then this could apply to you. Sole proprietorship, there probably isn't a 1099. You're paid by various parties, customers. You may do landscaping, for example, and it's not a formal business with its own EIN. It could have its own EIN, it may not, but really you're just paid directly, possibly even under your own name, possibly under a business name. You may have an EIN, but this is a sole proprietorship, independent contractor. So this would be an option that you can be eligible for this. So please don't be discouraged if you have a very small business and it's just you and you're paid by 1099 or you're paid by customers directly. You can still apply if you've suffered economic loss and are trying to emerge and continue business operations as the various lockdown measures have eased around the country. So let's go ahead and assume at this point, applicant is a business with not more than 500 employees, and then there are some boxes to check. Applicant is not engaged in any illegal activity, so we're going to go ahead and assume that's the case. No principal of the applicant with a 50% or greater ownership interest is more than 60 days delinquent on child support obligations. Applicant does not present live performances, etc., etc. Read through these yourself, of course. I won't go through all the wording. Applicant does not derive more than a third of gross annual revenue from legal gambling activities. Not in the business of lobbying. And you can't be a state, local, or municipal government entity and cannot be a member of Congress. So I'm sorry, Congressman, this will not be applicable to you, but you probably don't need it. So here we go. So all of those boxes are checked in this case, and I've selected the business type, and we're going to click continue. Now this is where you must submit various required information, everything with an asterisk. So business legal name, I'm going to be very creative and go with ABC Corp. Trade name, let's just assume our trade name is the same. If not, you would type in your trade name. Of course, I did it in all caps, a little bit different. Now, this is where you type in your EIN or your SSN for a sole proprietor. So in this case, for the EIN, just going to make up a number. And it may not like my number, but there it is. Okay, so organization type. Let's assume that this is an S corporation. And as you see, there are various options. Is the applicant a nonprofit organization? Let's assume that's a no. Is the applicant a franchise? Could be yes, could be no. Gross revenues for the 12 months prior to the date of the disaster, which is stated to be January 31st, 2020. So this would be your 2019 tax returns, as well as the month of January of 2020. So you'll need to do a little bit of research to determine your gross revenues, talk to your accountant, or perhaps you're organized and have this information yourself. So you'll enter the gross revenue for the 12 months prior to the date of the disaster, as indicated January 31st, 2020, which would include 2019, obviously, as well as 1 month of 2020. Cost of goods sold for the 12 months prior to the date of the disaster. So let's just say, for example, your gross revenues were $60,000 US, and let's say that your cost of goods sold was $20,000 US. So rental properties, residential and commercial only, lost rents due to the disaster. Let's assume we don't have lost rents. Nonprofit or agricultural enterprise cost of operation for the 12 month prior to the date of the disaster. Let's assume that we're not in that business sector, so that's a 0. Compensation from other sources received as a result of the disaster. Let's assume you don't have other compensation received as a result of the disaster. We're putting in a 0. Now, I believe you don't need to fill these out since they're not mandatory with that red asterisk, but in any case, I'm putting in zeros. Provide brief description of other compensation sources. So if you did have a number here and you had received some other revenue or compensation, you would explain it here. In this case, we'll assume no. Primary business address. So let's go with 123 Main Street, New York, New York. Could be New York, North Carolina, but as far as I know, that doesn't exist. So we're going to choose New York, New York. County. Well, I wish I knew the county name. I'm not going to waste your time and look that up, but you would type that in, although it's not mandatory. Zip code. I am going to simply make up a zip code, which, not valid. So now I am stuck with having to look up a zip code. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that real quick. An unexpected glitch in my plan. New York, New York zip code. Let's get a zip code. Okay, well, there we go. 10001. Okay, that's easy. 10001. All right, there we go. And for our phone number, we're going to choose another fictitious number. There we go. And we'll assume there's no alternative business phone, no business fax, business email. So my name is John. Very creative name. And we're going to go with the Yahoo address. Date business established January 1, 2000. Current ownership, let's say it's the same. Business activity, automotive repair. Detailed business activity, let's go with tire and glass. Number of employees, let's assume this is a 0, or if it's a 3, so you would just, whatever's applicable to your business. Let's assume you have no employees, it could be a 0 in that case. If you do have employees, you'd want to indicate that, and that can potentially qualify you for the advance, which may not have to be repaid, of up to $10,000. Let's assume it's just you for the sake of this tutorial. Individual owners. Okay, so, well, we chose the name John, so let's stick with that. Phone number, okay, so 203-555-1212. Title, let's assume title's owner. Ownership percent, 100%. If we remember our email, johnjohn@yahoo.com. At least it rhymes. SSN. Now, not sure if it's going to let me make up a social here, so I hope we can make it onto the next page, but we're going to try. And it's let us. All right, birthday January 1, 1985. Place of birth, New York. U.S. citizen, let's say that's a yes. Residential street address. Okay. And here we go again. Not New Hampshire, but New York. Okay, so I forgot to check a box. Is your business owned by a business entity? So if your business is owned by another entity, maybe you have a holding company, that could be a yes. You'd have to type in information on that company as a result. But let's assume that your business is not owned by another entity. That would be a no. All right, so you could add an additional owner if you have an additional owner. Let's assume no. We click next. Now we're on the final stages, and this is it. So it's actually not that complicated. 3 questions. In the past year, has the business or a listed owner been convicted of a felony, etc., etc.? You'd want to read it all, of course. Let's assume that's a no. Is the applicant or any listed owner currently suspended or disbarred from contracting with the federal government or receiving federal grants or loans? Let's hope that's a no. Are you presently subject to an indictment, criminal information, or arraignment, or other means by which formal criminal charges are brought in any jurisdiction, etc., etc.? Want to read it all. Make sure that you answer honestly, of course. Let's assume that's a no. And please make sure to answer all of this accurately. Very, very important. If anyone assisted you in completing this application, whether you pay a fee for this service or not, that person must enter their information below. So I'm not actually assisting you in completing the application. So my name I will not type there. However, I am providing some high-level overview on the process itself. But if you do work with a firm that helps you, for example, I believe some accounting firms may help people with this process. So if that's the case, you would list their information, and if there is a fee charge, you would so indicate, and you would indicate if you give permission to SBA to discuss the application. So some people may work with a firm or a person who's helping them. You would want to list that. Let's assume that that's a no in this case. You're doing it on your own. I would like to be considered for advance up to $10,000. So whether or not you have employees will probably determine your eligibility for this up to $10,000, which may be completely non-repayable, meaning money that you don't have to repay. You can uncheck it if you don't want to be considered. I'm not sure why you wouldn't want to be considered for it, but let's just assume you do. Now, this is the very important part. Your bank name, account number, and routing number. Okay, so I'm definitely not going to type that here unless you'd like to make deposits. Maybe I should, as long as you don't make withdrawals. Now, just to give you some insight, this is very important because this bank name, this account number, and this routing number must match your records with that bank. Let's say that you have, for example, Chase or Bank of America or Wells Fargo or any other bank out there. Your bank records must match the information that we have listed throughout this application. So in other words, when you entered the business name here, that must be the exact same name that you have listed on your bank account. So if your business name and your bank account is ABC Corp Inc., it's going to need to say Inc. here, or it's going to create a problem. So it's very important that matches. It's also important the EIN is the same, and it's also very important that the address is identical. If that doesn't match, then it's not going to go through, and you'll end up being lost in endless queues on the phone trying to fix things. You may receive an opportunity to fix it via email and updating the bank account information, and that's about all you'll have the chance to do, but you probably won't have an opportunity to edit any of the other information other than the bank account information. So make sure to get this right the first time, that business address and business name, and not only that, but in addition to that, the phone number as well for the business. All of this has to match what's on your bank account. If it doesn't match, no loan. Okay, so that's just critical. So let's go forward. You can go back and forth as you can see, which is pretty helpful. So in this case, where to send funds, make sure you get the numbers right. It's going to be scrutinized and verified to make sure that the account number, routing number, bank name, that the records on file with your bank are exactly a match for your entity name, and also the address that you've entered and the phone number you've entered. If those don't match, it's a huge problem. So just make sure to be very careful of that. If you're an independent contractor, same thing. The address, phone number, name just needs to match. Now, read all of this, of course. When you're ready to finish, you would click I hereby certify under penalty of perjury under the laws of the United States above is true and correct. I'm not going to click that box right now because I basically entered information for the sake of illustrative purposes that I cannot attest to being true and correct, because I made it all up just now for your sake so you can learn how to do this. So I won't click that box. But what you would do, assuming that you've entered it all true and correct, is you would check that box, and after that you would simply click next, which I'm not going to do because I legally don't think I can. And once you click next, it'll give you the chance to click submit. You'll have a confirmation number and you're done. So what we've done so far, we're one step away. You'd click this attestation, you'd click next, and there you'd be on a page that's going to give you your confirmation number. At that point, you'll simply wait a few days, and within a few days, you should receive an email that will basically allow you to take final steps, which will have a link. You'll click the link. Once you click the link, it will bring you to a portal where you'll be able to confirm a few pieces of information, verify yourself. You'll submit that. Once you submit that, then it'll be under underwriting evaluation. Once it's approved, if it's approved, you'll find out at some point later, hopefully not too long, if you've been approved. If you've been approved, then you'll essentially be able to sign the documents electronically, submit those, and shortly thereafter, the money will be in your bank account. And that's pretty much it. So I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions, remember to post them in the comments section. And please remember to click subscribe, click the bell, click all. And if you've liked this and found it helpful, please make sure to click like as well. Thank you so much for joining this episode. Wish you all the best.